The Little Mermaid. Far beneath the shimmering ocean surface, past forests of kelp and drifting clouds of jellyfish, there lay a kingdom carved from coral and crystal. Its towers shimmered like moonlight trapped in seashells, and its walls echoed with the songs of sirens and the hush of whale song. This was the underwater realm of Atlantica, ruled by the Sea King, Triton, a mighty sovereign with a golden trident and eyes as deep as the Mariana Trench. He governed the seas with wisdom and strength, ensuring harmony among all sea creatures. He had 7 daughters, born of coral and song, each more graceful than the last. They were known throughout the ocean for their beauty, their music, and their elegance. But the youngest daughter, Ariel, was unlike the others. Ariel was radiant, her hair a cascade of red like flowing fireweed, her eyes bright with wonder. But what set her apart wasn't her beauty. It was her unshakable curiosity. While her sisters sang at court and collected rare pearls, Ariel spent her time wandering far from the palace, exploring sunken ruins and forgotten shipwrecks. She gathered treasures from the human world, silver forks, shattered spyglasses, worn-out maps, and stored them in a secret grotto lit by glowing sea moss and anchored by coral shelves. Ariel was fascinated with the world above the waves. "Why do they walk on 2 limbs instead of fins?" she once asked a passing turtle. "Because they don't know the joy of swimming," it replied. "But what is fire? What's a sunburn? Why do their sails feel like jellyfish in the wind?" These questions never left her. Her best friend, Flounder, a small, nervous fish with a big heart, often followed her on these adventures, grumbling about danger but always sticking close. "You're going to get us eaten by a shark one day," he would say. Ariel would just laugh and dive deeper. Her other companion, Sebastian, a crab appointed by King Triton himself to keep an eye on her, tried to steer her away from trouble. He was strict, often anxious, and deeply loyal. "Ariel, the surface is forbidden. It's dangerous. What if a net catches you? What if humans see you?" But no warnings could stifle the call she felt. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was something deeper. A pull. A longing. She didn't understand it yet. But she would soon. Because on the eve of her 15th birthday, she would be allowed, for the first time, to rise to the surface, and everything would change. Ariel swam restlessly through the coral palace, her heart thudding with anticipation. The rules of the sea were clear: no mermaid was permitted to visit the surface until her 15th birthday. And today, finally, it was hers. She had waited years, listening to her sisters return from their own surface visits with dreamy tales of sunsets, islands, ships, and skies that stretched forever. But none of them felt what Ariel did, that the surface wasn't just curious, it was calling. That evening, she slipped out quietly. With Flounder at her side and Sebastian trailing anxiously behind, muttering something about reporting this to the king, Ariel ascended through glittering waters that shifted from deep green to sapphire. Tiny bubbles clung to her as she rose, and somewhere far above, the last blush of daylight bled through the waves. Then she broke through the surface. And the world changed. The sky above her was vast and painted with fading streaks of orange and purple. The wind tousled her hair. Stars blinked to life one by one, strange and steady. And on the horizon floated a massive ship, a celebration in full swing. Ariel swam closer, keeping low behind the swells. The ship was alight with lanterns. Music drifted across the water, strange and lilting, filled with fiddles and drums. Sailors laughed and danced. Fireworks burst into the sky, their colors reflected on the ocean like glowing jellyfish. And at the heart of it all, him. A young man stood on the main deck, a dark-haired human with sea wind in his hair and wonder in his eyes. He leaned on the rail, smiling up at the fireworks, then turned to help an older sailor steady the sails. He didn't wear a crown, but Ariel could tell, he was important. Kind. Strong. He's beautiful, she whispered. You mean handsome, Flounder corrected softly. Ariel didn't correct herself. Beautiful felt right. Then, as quickly as joy had filled her, the wind shifted. The sky turned dark. Clouds rolled in from nowhere. Thunder cracked above them like a whip. The ship lurched as waves crashed against its hull. Men shouted. Sails tore. Rain pelted down like thrown stones. Ariel's eyes darted across the chaos, until she saw him. The young man, trying to help the crew, was thrown from the deck into the raging sea. Ariel, don't, cried Sebastian. But she was already diving. The waves were monstrous. Ariel fought through them, tail flashing in the lightning. She found him sinking, unconscious, his arms limp, his leg caught in a rope. She ripped the rope free and wrapped her arms around him. With all her strength, she dragged him upward. Minutes later, she pulled him ashore, onto the sand of a small cove lit by the storm's fading fury. She rested his head on a rock and brushed wet hair from his brow. Please, she whispered. Wake up. He didn't move. So she sang. Her voice was soft, fragile at first, then clear and haunting. The melody echoed between the cliffs, wrapping around him like a lullaby. Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. He groaned. Before he could truly see her, Ariel heard voices in the distance, human ones. A girl calling. A dog barking. Panicked, she slipped back into the water, her heart aching. From behind a rock, she watched as another girl, a human, found him. He sat up, dazed, confused, murmuring about a girl with a voice like the sea. Ariel dove beneath the waves before he could say more. But she didn't stop thinking about him. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. Ariel couldn't forget him. The young man, Prince Elias, she later learned, had lived in her thoughts every waking moment since the storm. She returned again and again to the cove where she had saved him, watching from behind rocks as the royal search parties combed the shore. He spoke to no one of the girl who had saved him, only that he remembered a voice. A song. Her song. Ariel sang less and dreamed more. She drifted through the sea like a ghost, distant even to her sisters. When they asked what troubled her, she offered only a soft smile. But her heart had changed. It no longer belonged fully to the sea. It ached for something more. Something impossible. One night, when the moon was a silver coin above the waves, Ariel swam to her grotto and stared at the human things she had collected. A comb. A candle holder. A cracked mirror. And now, hidden in a sea silk pouch, a scrap of his ship's sail she had found days after the wreck. Flounder floated nervously near the entrance. Ariel. You're not really thinking of it. Are you? I just want to talk to her, Ariel said. You don't just talk to Ursula. Sebastian exploded from the shadows. She's dangerous. She deals in curses and bargains. She lives in the abyssal trench. Even sharks don't go there. I have to, Ariel whispered. He's up there, living a life I'll never reach. I need to know if there's a way. Despite protests, warnings, and fear, Ariel left that night, swimming deeper than she ever had before. Down, down, through dead waters and cold currents, past sunken bones and ghost ships, until the light vanished and the pressure thickened. Until she reached Ursula. The abyssal trench was not a place of color. Everything was shadow and echo. And at the center of it all sat a lair made of whale bones and sea glass. And in the middle of it, a figure moved. Ursula. Half octopus, half woman, all menace. Her tentacles coiled like living shadows. Her voice was like oil. Smooth, dark, and dangerous. Well, 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 she purred. What brings King Triton's precious little guppy to my parlor? Ariel straightened. Her voice didn't tremble.
I want to be human. Ursula laughed, a deep, slow laugh that made the water vibrate. Of course you do. So many do. And what will you give me in return? I don't have gold or gems. I don't want gold, Ursula interrupted. I want something more valuable. Your voice. Ariel's eyes widened. You give me that perfect little songbird voice, and I'll give you legs. Real ones. You'll be able to walk, dance, run, kiss your prince, perhaps. But I won't be able to speak? Ariel asked quietly. Not a word, Ursula confirmed. But actions speak louder anyway, dear. Just remember, this magic comes with a price. If the prince doesn't kiss you, a true love's kiss, by the third sunset, you'll turn back into sea foam. And your soul will belong to me. Ariel hesitated. Flounder's words echoed in her memory. Sebastian's warnings, her father's wrath. And still, her heart chose. She nodded. Ursula grinned and conjured a scroll of glowing ink. Ariel signed it with trembling hands. A swirling vortex of magic engulfed her. Pain, real, searing pain, wrapped around her tail. It twisted, shattered, and reshaped. Her gills vanished. Her lungs fought to breathe. When the magic faded, she floated unconscious near the surface, her tail gone, legs in its place. And above, a ship's rowboat approached the shore.
The world above was not made for mermaids. Ariel awoke on the shore, her body drenched and trembling. The first thing she noticed was the strange sensation of her legs, awkward and unfamiliar, tangled in seaweed like ribbons. Her lungs ached. The air felt sharp and dry. The waves behind her beckoned, but the spell held firm. And then, a voice. Are you all right? She turned. It was him, Prince Elias, just as she remembered him, only now closer than ever. His eyes, so clear, so kind, locked onto hers with wonder. He knelt beside her on the sand. You must have been in the water. Were you on one of the ships nearby? Ariel opened her mouth. But no words came. Not even a whisper. Confusion flickered across her face. She tried again. Nothing. Still, Elias didn't frown. He smiled gently, lifting her to her feet as carefully as if she were made of porcelain. Well, wherever you came from, don't worry. You're safe now. Elias brought her to the royal palace. A structure of limestone and ivy perched along the cliffs, surrounded by flowering gardens and golden halls. Ariel was given a soft bed, warm clothes, though she fumbled with them at first, and food that surprised her, things like bread, soup, roasted vegetables. Everything was strange, yet fascinating. She tried to thank him, with her eyes, her gestures, her smile. And he noticed. He spoke to her often, sharing stories about his voyages, his love for the sea, his music, his kingdom. She listened with wide-eyed wonder. And she tried to respond, with gestures, drawings in sand, and silent laughter. He began to understand her language, even if it wasn't made of words. She followed him through the gardens. To the market square. On walks by the shore. He grew fond of her. But though her heart soared each time he smiled, something darker loomed. The third sunset was drawing near. And Elias still didn't know who she really was. He didn't know she had saved him. That the girl from the storm, the one with the voice, was her. Because her voice was gone. And Ursula had ensured no one else could ever tell him the truth. Then, on the morning of the third day, a new visitor arrived at the castle. A noblewoman, elegant, poised, and with a voice that stopped Elias in his tracks. "That's her," he whispered. "The girl who saved me." Ariel's heart shattered. The woman, Vanessa, smiled sweetly, but Ariel could see it, the glint of cunning in her eyes. The unnatural sway of her walk. The way shadows lingered at her feet. It wasn't a noblewoman. It was Ursula, in disguise. She had used Ariel's voice. Stolen her identity. And now, she was about to take everything else too. Ariel's time was nearly up. And the sea witch was winning. The castle buzzed with excitement. Prince Elias was preparing for his engagement to Vanessa, the woman he believed had saved him. A sunset ceremony was arranged on the royal terrace overlooking the ocean. Lanterns were being strung. Musicians tuned their instruments. And Ariel stood alone in the shadows, heartbroken. She watched from a balcony as he walked with Vanessa, a distant smile on his face, as if something inside him didn't fully believe what was happening. But the spell Ursula had cast using Ariel's voice was too strong. It clouded his memories, pulling his heart away from the truth. Ariel had almost no time left. By the moment the third sunset touched the water, the spell would be sealed forever. Her legs would turn to sea foam. Her soul would be Ursula's. Back beneath the waves, Sebastian and Flounder had been searching desperately for King Triton. When they finally reached him, Sebastian breathlessly spilled every detail. Ariel's silence, Ursula's trickery, and the terrible deal she'd made. Triton's rage was immediate, but so was his fear. He summoned his guards and surged to the surface in a whirlpool of fury and power. At the same time, Flounder raced toward the castle's shoreline, just as Scuttle, the excitable seagull, arrived breathless with news. "I saw it. That Vanessa woman, she's not human. She's Ursula in disguise." Ariel's eyes widened. She knew it. She just had no proof. But then, in the mirror of Vanessa's dressing room, Ariel saw it, her own reflection in a shell necklace hanging from Vanessa's neck. Her voice, trapped inside it. And just as Elias stepped onto the ceremonial platform, Ariel lunged toward Vanessa. She wrestled the necklace from her, and it shattered on the stone floor. A swirl of golden light exploded from it, and Ariel's voice, her real voice, flew back into her. Gasps rose. Ariel fell to her knees, but she finally spoke. "I saved you. On the night of the storm. It was me." Prince Elias stared at her. Memories came flooding back, her face through the lightning, her song in the dark, the warmth of her arms pulling him to shore. "Ariel," he breathed. "It was you." But before he could reach her, the sky turned black. With a scream of fury, Vanessa transformed, tentacles bursting from her dress, voice rising like thunder. Ursula had lost the necklace. Her disguise was broken. And now she would take what was owed. She grabbed Ariel in a whirlpool of magic. Elias drew his sword. "Let her go." But Ursula was rising, growing massive and monstrous, her tentacles spreading across the shoreline like shadows. "You dare interfere?" she bellowed. "She belongs to me." And then, Triton arrived. With his trident glowing, he faced Ursula. "Not my daughter," he growled. But Ursula had the contract, the scroll Ariel had signed. She held it high. "A deal is a deal, Your Majesty." Triton looked at Ariel, broken, afraid, but brave. He knew what he had to do. "Then take me instead." Before anyone could stop him, he took Ariel's place. The spell shifted. Triton fell, his body withering into shadow. Ursula rose higher, drunk on power. She seized the trident, now hers. The sea and sky darkened. But Ariel wasn't done yet. Ursula, now wielding King Triton's trident, had become a towering force of chaos. The sea surged in fury, waves crashing violently against the cliffs as storm clouds darkened the sky. Her laughter echoed across the water, monstrous and wild. Below, Ariel struggled to stand. Her legs were weak. Her heart ached. Her father, her powerful, loving father, had sacrificed himself for her. The guilt was overwhelming. But in that moment, something inside her shifted. She was no longer just a curious girl from the sea. She was Ariel, daughter of Triton. A mermaid who had dared to dream. And now, a young woman who would fight for what mattered. Beside her, Prince Elias stood ready, sword in hand. "She's not invincible," he said. "Not if we work together." Ariel nodded. As Ursula summoned whirlpools and sea monsters from the depths, Elias climbed onto the royal ship anchored near the bay. Ariel dove into the crashing surf, her legs still trembling, but her will steady. Using the ropes and sails, Elias swung over Ursula's head, distracting her with strikes of his blade. Ariel swam beneath her, dodging the monstrous tentacles that snapped through the water like whips. And then she saw it, the trident, floating from Ursula's grasp just for a moment. She darted through the chaos. Tentacles nearly crushed her. Debris flew. Thunder roared. But she reached it. With both hands, she grabbed the trident and turned, pointing it at Ursula. Golden energy exploded. Ursula screamed as the magic struck her, not destroying her, but undoing her stolen power. Triton's form shimmered in the water below, returning, whole, glowing. The sea calmed. Ursula let out one final, monstrous wail before vanishing into black ink, sinking back into the abyss from which she came. Silence returned. Ariel floated in the water, exhausted but alive. Her father approached her, pride and sorrow in his eyes. "You fought for love," he said softly. "You gave more than I ever thought you could. And I see now. Your heart isn't only in the sea anymore." He looked at Elias on the ship, bruised, bloodied, but watching Ariel like she was the sun itself. Triton raised the trident once more. Magic danced in the air. Gentle, peaceful, full of love. In a swirl of golden light, Ariel's legs returned, but this time, there was no pain. This time, the change was a gift. She was human. By choice. The sun rose over the kingdom, painting the sea with light. Ariel walked barefoot along the shore as Elias approached. No words were needed this time. He took her hands, gently. And then he asked, "Would you stay? Not just in the castle, but in my world, with me?" Ariel smiled. "I've always wanted to explore." The wedding bells rang days later, celebrated by both land and sea. Merfolk watched from the surf. Seagulls circled the sky. Even Sebastian cried, loudly. Triton, though sad, had gained a daughter who had grown into a woman of strength. And Ariel? She hadn't just traded her fins for feet. She had claimed her destiny. Not for a prince. Not for magic. But for the courage to choose her own story. And the waves whispered it for years to come.